The moment Claire Whitmore looked me in the eyes and said she needed someone like me, I felt 20 years of friendship cracking beneath my feet. She was my best friend's wife, her hands were trembling around a chipped coffee mug, and the bruise-colored exhaustion beneath her eyes told me she had been suffering far longer than anyone knew. Sunlight poured through the kitchen window, bright and unforgiving, revealing the silence between us for what it truly was, a dangerous truth neither of us could take back. Before I tell you what happened next, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel if you believe kindness can rescue a broken heart, forgiveness can rebuild a family, and second chances can turn our deepest mistakes into something meaningful. That I had known Preston Hale since we were 12 years old, when he defended me from 3 older boys behind our middle school gym and walked home with a split lip as if it were nothing. We grew up in the same quiet Pennsylvania town, played baseball together, attended the same college, and stood beside each other through failed relationships, job losses, funerals, and every uncertain season of adulthood. Preston was the brother I had chosen, and when he married Claire 8 years earlier, I had believed she was the best thing that had ever happened to him. She was thoughtful without demanding attention for it, the kind of person who remembered birthdays, brought soup when someone was sick, and listened carefully when others spoke. Together, they had a 7-year-old daughter named Poppy, whose drawings covered their refrigerator like colorful windows into a happier world. From the outside, Preston and Claire had everything people prayed for: a pleasant home, a healthy child, steady jobs, and friends who admired them. But appearances can hide an entire storm, and I had begun noticing small signs that something inside their marriage was collapsing. Preston had changed after being promoted to regional director at his logistics company. At first, we were all proud of him. He had spent years working weekends, taking difficult assignments, and proving himself to supervisors who rarely offered praise. But the promotion seemed to take more from him than it gave. His phone never stopped ringing. He missed Poppy's school events, forgot Claire's birthday dinner, and began speaking to everyone as if they were employees, slowing down his schedule. Whenever I visited, Claire moved carefully around him, measuring every word before she spoke. Preston did not hit her or threaten her, but he dismissed her pain with jokes, criticized her decisions, and made her feel foolish for needing emotional support. He had become a man who provided everything except his presence. Still, I told myself it was temporary. I defended him because loyalty sometimes makes us protect the version of someone we remember instead of confronting the person they have become. The morning everything changed began with a call from Claire asking whether I could help move a broken bookshelf from Poppy's room. Preston had promised to do it weeks earlier, but another Saturday meeting had taken priority. I arrived shortly before noon, expecting a simple favor. The house was unusually quiet because Poppy was attending a classmate's daytime birthday party. Claire had tied her auburn hair into a loose knot, but strands had fallen around her pale face. While we carried the bookshelf downstairs, she apologized repeatedly for bothering me. That apology disturbed me more than the heavy furniture. Claire had started believing that asking for basic help made her a burden. After we placed the shelf near the garage, she offered me coffee, and we sat at the kitchen table beneath the clear afternoon light. For several minutes, she said nothing. Then tears slid down her face without warning. She told me Preston had not spoken kindly to her in months. He had rejected counseling, laughed when she suggested taking a weekend away as a family, and accused her of being ungrateful because he paid most of the bills. She had stopped sharing her feelings because every conversation ended with her apologizing for having them. That I should have listened without judging him, but anger rose faster than wisdom. I told Claire she deserved better than being ignored in her own marriage. I said she deserved respect, tenderness, and a partner who noticed when she was disappearing. Those words came from concern, but they crossed a line because I was no longer simply comforting her. I was standing in judgment of my closest friend while speaking to his wounded wife. Claire stared at me as if I had opened a locked door inside her. Then, in a broken voice, she said she needed someone like me. The kitchen suddenly felt too small. I understood what she meant, or at least what loneliness had made her believe she meant. She did not reach for me, and I did not touch her, yet the emotional boundary between us had already shifted. For one shameful second, I felt seen in a way I had not felt for years. I was 36, divorced, and accustomed to returning to an empty apartment. Claire's words touched the loneliest part of me, and that frightened me more than anything. That I stood immediately and told her that I cared about her, but I could never become an escape from the pain she and Preston had not faced. Claire covered her face and apologized, humiliated by her own confession. I told her she had done nothing unforgivable. She was exhausted, unseen, and desperate to feel valued, but acting on that desperation would destroy more than a marriage. It would destroy Poppy's sense of safety, my friendship with Preston, Claire's trust in herself, and whatever dignity remained between all of us. I encouraged her to speak honestly with Preston and insist on counseling, even if the conversation frightened her. Then I left while the sun was still high, carrying a weight that made every step toward my car feel like betrayal. I had not kissed her. I had not promised her anything. Yet secrecy itself began to feel dishonest. For 3 days, I avoided Preston's calls. Each time his name appeared on my phone, I imagined the friendship ending. I also thought about Claire, wondering whether she regretted speaking or whether she was sitting alone in that bright kitchen feeling abandoned again. On Tuesday afternoon, Preston appeared at my workplace. He looked angry, but beneath the anger was fear. Claire had told him she wanted a trial separation unless he agreed to counseling. She had not mentioned our conversation, but Preston knew I had been at the house and demanded to know what I had said. Every instinct told me to protect myself, but I finally understood that loyalty without honesty was cowardice. I asked him to walk with me to a small public park across the street. Children were playing near the fountain, office workers were eating lunch on benches, and the ordinary daylight made the conversation feel even more exposed. That I told Preston the truth. I explained that Claire had broken down, that I had told her she deserved better, and that she had said she needed someone like me. His face changed as though I had struck him. He asked whether anything had happened between us, and I answered without hesitation that nothing physical had happened and nothing ever would. Still, I admitted I had crossed a boundary by criticizing him to his wife instead of confronting him directly. Preston shoved his hands into his pockets and walked several feet away. I expected him to punch me, curse me, or end our friendship. Instead, he stared at the fountain and said quietly that he had known Claire was unhappy. He simply believed she would stay unhappy because leaving would be inconvenient. That confession revealed the ugliest truth of all. He had mistaken her loyalty for permission to neglect her. Preston sat on a bench and began crying in full daylight. I had seen him injured, drunk, grieving, and furious, but I had never seen him collapse beneath the weight of his own choices. He admitted that success had become an addiction. Every promotion made him feel safer from the poverty he had experienced as a child, but the more he chased security, the less secure his family became. He had convinced himself that money was love because providing financially was easier than apologizing, listening, or admitting fear. He told me he resented Claire whenever she asked for more of him because her requests exposed the emptiness he was trying to hide. I told him understanding his behavior did not excuse it. Claire did not owe him endless patience, and Poppy should not grow up believing love meant walking quietly around someone's temper. For the first time in years, Preston did not defend himself. He simply nodded. That afternoon, he canceled his meetings and went home. Claire later told me that when he arrived, he did not offer flowers, excuses, or promises. He sat across from her at the same kitchen table and listened. She told him about the loneliness, the humiliation, and the way she had begun imagining a different life simply to survive the one she was living. She also told him exactly what she had said to me. Preston was hurt, but he did not use her confession as a weapon. He admitted that his neglect had created an emotional emptiness, though he also made clear that rebuilding trust would require honesty from both of them. They agreed to begin counseling, but Claire refused to promise the marriage would survive. For the first time, Preston understood that repentance was not a performance designed to guarantee forgiveness. It was a commitment to change, even if the person he had hurt ultimately chose to leave. The months that followed were not a simple transformation. Preston attended therapy, reduced his workload, and stepped away from the promotion that had consumed him. Some people called the decision foolish, but he said losing a title was easier than losing the people whose names mattered more. He began taking Poppy to school, cooking lunch on Saturdays, and sitting with Claire without checking his phone. Yet Claire did not immediately soften. She remained cautious because apologies can be spoken in minutes while trust returns in inches. There were days when old resentment surfaced and sessions when they left counseling separately, each carrying years of pain. I kept my distance from Claire and met Preston only in public places for several months. Our friendship survived, but it changed. He no longer treated loyalty as silence, and I no longer confused friendship with protecting him from consequences. One unexpected turning point came during Poppy's spring school fair. The event took place beneath a bright blue afternoon sky, with handmade banners tied between trees and children racing across the grass. Preston had volunteered to help run a game booth, something the old Preston would have dismissed as unimportant. Claire stood nearby watching him kneel to tie Poppy's shoelace, his attention completely fixed on his daughter. She did not smile immediately. Then Poppy hugged him and shouted that he was the best booth helper in the whole school. Claire's expression softened, not because one sweet moment erased the past, but because real change had finally become visible in ordinary actions. Later that afternoon, Claire approached me beside the lemonade table. She thanked me for refusing to become the answer to her loneliness. She said that rejection had hurt at the time, but it forced her to choose courage instead of escape. I apologized again for telling her she deserved better in a way that placed myself between her and Preston. Claire shook her head and said the words had awakened her, even if the moment was complicated. She had come to understand that deserving better did not necessarily mean deserving a different man. Sometimes it meant demanding better behavior, setting boundaries, and being willing to walk away if those boundaries were ignored. She also said she no longer needed someone like me. She needed to become someone who would never again abandon her own voice. That was the most important change of all. Claire had stopped measuring her worth through Preston's attention or my kindness. She had reclaimed it for herself. A year after the afternoon in the kitchen, Preston and Claire renewed their promises privately in their backyard beneath the warm morning sun. It was not a second wedding, and they did not pretend the first marriage had been perfect. They simply invited a few close friends, stood beneath the maple tree, and spoke honestly about the life they were choosing to rebuild. Preston promised not that he would never fail, but that he would never again hide behind pride when he did. Claire promised to speak before silence turned into resentment and to leave no part of herself abandoned for the sake of keeping peace. Poppy carried a small basket of wildflowers and grinned as if she understood that her family had survived something enormous. Before the gathering ended, Preston pulled me aside. He said there had been a time when he hated me for hearing the truth from Claire before he did. Then he realized I had given him the one thing a real friend must sometimes offer, a mirror. He forgave me for crossing the boundary, and I forgave him for making everyone around him carry the cost of his fear. We hugged beneath the same clear sky that had witnessed so many painful conversations, and I understood that forgiveness was not the removal of consequences. It was the decision to stop letting those consequences poison the future. What would you have done if you were standing in my place? Protected the friendship through silence, or risked everything by telling the truth? Leave a meaningful comment about whether love is proven more through grand promises or through small, consistent acts of change. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Claire once believed she needed someone like me, but the truth was more powerful than that. She needed honesty, dignity, and the courage to demand a life where love did not require her to disappear. Preston needed to lose the comfort of being excused before he could become the husband and father he had always claimed to be. And I needed to learn that doing the right thing does not always leave your hands clean or your heart unbroken. Sometimes kindness means stepping closer, and sometimes it means stepping away before comfort becomes betrayal. Their marriage did not survive because everyone behaved perfectly. It survived because three imperfect people faced the truth in the light of day, accepted responsibility for the pain they had caused, and chose growth over secrecy. In the end, Claire did receive the love she deserved, not from a replacement waiting outside her marriage, but from a changed man who finally learned how to be present, and from the stronger woman she discovered within herself.